Hello, hi, and welcome back to the Here Together podcast from the Philadelphia Orchestra and Kimmel Center, Inc. This is a place where we hope you'll find a home in this art we all love. I'm your host, Khadija Mbowe, and I describe myself as a sociocultural content creator, classically trained soprano, and loving provocateur. And I'm here to facilitate some heartfelt, engaging, disruptive conversations with artists, activists, and everyone in between. That's you. You just heard part of a piece called Winter Ride, composed by our guest today, Esabel Valverde, who specializes in choral and vocal music. And believe it or not, that's one of several pieces Mari has written about winter.
I love the snow. I love winter. I could live in the Arctic. I really don't, I never complain about cold weather. Just put some clothes on. Listen, it's cute anyway. It's so good. And everything dies. And it's just the air smells different. And I'm just this is a spiritual time for me. I feel connected to the earth during the winter. And the summer, I feel assaulted by the earth. And I live in Texas. It's really unhappy.
Mari also grew up in Texas, in a household with both parents, who, by the way, are still married after more than 35 years, and her brother Matthew. The siblings both fell in love with singing as kids, and he also went on to pursue music. Today, they often compare notes from the field.
There's so much to unpack.
Could you name some of your, I don't want to just call them gripes because I don't want to mitigate the actual importance of what the issues are for you, but can you speak a bit more to that weekly conversations that you're having with your siblings or with your brother, and anyone else that you work with?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of my conversation with him last time, but I think off the top of my head, the low-hanging fruit is when I go to a concert, especially if it's one of the really bougie celebrated ensembles performing, and less than 50% of the composers are women or non-binary, or if they just don't have any living composers on their concert, they're too far gone. Don't talk to me.
Yes. Sorry, just yes. Continue. Just yes.
I don't know. I feel whenever I talk to millennials or younger, we all kind of get it because these are the people I've grown up with. And so many of them are really awesome musicians, or they could have been, or maybe they are, but they don't want to be in the career anymore, which, whatever. There's a whole bunch of people in my field that have inferiority complex, or they're itching badly for validation, or they're just completely disenchanted, alienated. They're done. Those people deserve to be celebrated. We need to adjust the definition of success and excellence to meet those people where they have been, because they've been serving it. So people have asked me, how do we highlight or center Indigenous voices, for example? And I'm well, you have to go to their concert. It's not even I caught myself saying the word discover the work that they've been doing. And I was that's the 40% European part of me saying that. And I'm no, it's not discovered. They've been doing it. Just white people with money haven't been attending their concerts, or whatever communal music they create. And this convention that's happening, it's the American Choral Directors Association. And the first word that I say is American. And I think, this organization is less than 2%. And the membership that was surveyed, less than 2% Latinx or Latine or Latino or whatever. People don't like that term.
Yeah.
People are going to be upset either way. I got
dragged online.
I say Latino, Latina, or Latine. For the white folks, it's Latinx.
Yeah.
I'm going to get canceled.
I educated myself because I said Latinx once and people were like, what the heck? And I was like, you know what? Let me go do some Googles. Let me cipher through some things.
It's understandable because the word before that people used, the regular use of that word was Latino for a long time, or Latinos, which is an English word that is actually Spanish. So that's why there's all this controversy, because Latinx is just virtually unpronounceable. Yes. But to trans people in America, it feels well, if you don't use Latinx, then you're being transphobic. And it's like, look, I'm Mexican and trans. Just calm down, everybody. Calm down.
But you were saying, though, it's the ACDA, it's 2% of their membership. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they surveyed, it wasn't the whole membership. I mean, it had to be a voluntary thing to be a part of the survey. Mm-hmm. But of their survey, it was like less than 2% Latino, Latina, Latine. So, yeah, that was just striking to me because that's the category that I most identify with. But I'll say it this way. The more success I've had in my career, the less I see myself.
Felt that very hard. And I wanted to add extra context of like, if you look at the United States demographics, Latino, Latine folks don't make up just 2% of the population. It's a large demographic. I shouldn't take so many larges, but yes, exactly. So that's to add context for the audience. But I think what you said of the more quote unquote success you find or all that, the less you see yourself and how isolating that can feel.
I've come to the realization that we're not taught our history. I mean, the only reason I know the percentages is because I spat in the tube and did the DNA thing, but I'm 50% indigenous Mexican, and I don't know anything about that. But it's just like, I wasn't taught that. And, you know, I don't really blame my parents or my family. It's just that was not a priority for them to survive this economic system.
In terms of your choral works and just the way you compose, even the stuff that you sing, was it influenced a lot by the music that you had growing up?
Oh, it's a mix of things. It's a mix again. I don't know if you know Kat Black, but I've been following Kat Black for a long time. And she has she's doing shorts of like, these are the albums that influenced me. Because she and I are like the same age. And yeah, anyway, I was thinking about what would be my albums. And one of them is Canciones de mi Padre by an artist named Linda Ronstadt. I don't know if she's Mexican exactly. She might be. She should be. I mean, the album is very Mexican. I think the style would be considered like mariachi or similar to that. It has orchestra in it. My parents would play that all the time. So I think that is a sound that is from my childhood that lives with me, that I have never seen really celebrated until very recently. And I don't identify much with it because, I mean, the story of my Mexican heritage is that like my dad was not supposed to speak Spanish in the home because he was of an era that like they were trying to whitewash themselves. Having a Spanish accent would make you marginalized, a Mexican accent of Spanish. So that's one. I'm going off on a tangent already. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, when I think about like my childhood, which I have forgotten a lot of it because I'm trans and that's just part of being trans. Also like video game music. I call myself a gamer, but I'm like a normie gamer. I love Pokemon. But there's a game from the Gameboy Advance era called Golden Sun. I don't know how many bits. Don't come for me. It's like 16-bit, 64-bit. I don't know. It's something, I don't know the technology, but I know that it's just like the music that lived inside that little box was super memorable to me. And what else? I like to tell people I had a very white education. And so it was the German...
Say more about that.
It was the German leader. It was French melody. I love that late romantic era of French composers. I am self-taught in some facets of music, like music theory and piano. Like I wanted to compose music when I was in 8th grade. That's when I started. And so probably the best gift I ever got was this piano from my parents, ever. I had piano lessons eventually, but when I was starting out, I was just kind of doodling. I went to the music store and I bought a book of Claude Debussy piano music, and I sight read through it very poorly, but That was my first composition teacher, really. Yeah, those are also early influences, I would say.
Here's some of Mari's El Triste León from Canciones del Pasado, performed by tenor Matthew Valverde, pianist Randy Macy, and violinist Sarah Off. Mari indulged her yearning for frigid weather when, for undergrad, she went to St. Olaf's College in Minnesota. There was no warm welcome, which turned out to be exactly what she needed to feel comfortable.
I chose the right school. It was the best decision for me. It's not a perfect place. They have a lot of reckoning happening all the time. It is a Norwegian Lutheran school in the Midwest, and it's very cold there, and winter is like 6 months there. I absolutely loved it. I felt that I could explore being fully myself for the first time. And it didn't really have to do with like people advocating for me, which would have been nice. Being trans in 2009, out and trans in 2009, people didn't really know what to do or say, which in some ways is better than what's going on.
I was about to say, it low-key sounds like it might have been a blessing.
But at the same time, I didn't have people fight me. And I think that's just the difference. I was in the Midwest, and culturally in the Midwest, people are very quiet and they speak more softly and more intently. And it's that Nordic culture. If you ever go to like Norway, Sweden, or Finland, like it's rude for you to say hello on the street.
Oh.
Like they are very like icy, and they also don't get sarcasm, and I don't get sarcasm, so we get along great.
Perfect.
But the only reason I bring it up is that like the white people that live there, a lot of them are descendants from Nordic people. And there's this word they use called Minnesota nice, and it's really, really just Minnesota passive aggressive. But because of that passivity, I was allowed to be heard. Like I could get away with things. I could just be myself, and people might have judged me, but I didn't care because I was just able to be present. And yeah, I took that. Whenever I'm in Texas, it's not a passive aggressive, it's just aggressive. So that was like a culture shift. I think the weather has a lot to do with how people are. That's also why I like rain and cloudy. Seattle's my favorite city I've ever visited. People like, they're very like real, but they don't talk to each other. And the thing about being like standoffish or like icy, intimacy, connection, those things happen when people really want them to happen. And that's how it comes off as honest to me.
I get it.
Yeah, I like that. People are a little like depressed and like edgy and like city life, but it's like cloudy all the time. It's cold all the time. Like I love that because people are just they keep to themselves, and when they don't, they're very honest.
They're just honest about how they feel, even when they are keeping to themselves. They're like, it's cold, I'm angry, and I don't want to talk to people.
Thank you for like being present. Like, thank you.
Because what I get from you, and in general, it seems, is that you're not afraid to just say things how you see it.
Sometimes I am, but I try not to be.
When are those times?
You know, the whole tea. We're talking about being trans a lot. I started my transition months after a near-death experience. And when you almost die from something, you really start to question what you want out of your life, but you also like start to identify priorities and act on those priorities. You've had the experience, you zoom out, you're like, yeah, I can be honest.
Because what else do you have to be afraid of at that point?
Honestly, when you're not honest, you're just delaying the truth coming out. Lies is just wasting people's time.
I needed that to sit in the air for a second. It does. What's done in the dark will always come to light. It's true. Yes. I just keep saying yes. But because it seems like you have not just taken these experiences, like it doesn't seem like you're the kind of person that takes anything for granted. You're a lifelong student. From what I'm getting, you are open and you care about honesty not more than anything, but you care about honesty a lot. How do those sets of values inform your teaching when you're working with singers, especially?
So that takes me to shame. And I have to I need to breathe after saying that, just because I feel like, and it comes out in my music too, especially when I get to write about sex or the body in any way. It's like liberating me, because I grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s learning only shame about my body, because I'm a trans woman and I'm not skinny either. And I'm not white. So like, we're not taught ever that we're beautiful, even at home, really. So it's not something that I take for granted, and I also question it readily. But it's the shame. That's what I think about first when you ask that question, is unlearning shame. And I take that as my responsibility especially when working with young musicians, especially AFAB people, especially. And I say AFAB because I think that, I started my transition when I was 19. People in the world have only known me as a woman. But when I was a student, I was not socialized female. And so when I started teaching high school students, and I had, young cis women or just AFAB students, I was like, the things that people tell you are not true. They're like, it's like bullshit. You get to decide who you are. You get to decide how you want to be. And I did it last night. I had somebody say sorry to me, and like a reflex, a short singer in the treble choir. She was like, oh, I'm sorry. Because I think I got too close to her, and she was coming from the other direction. And I looked her in the face. I said, don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. And I don't care who my student is. I don't care, your skin complexion, how tall you are, if you're gay or straight, whatever. I don't care who you are. If you're my student, you're going to unlearn shame, because it is a detriment to learning. And we all deserve to be our full selves. And in music, you want to be intimate. You want to be expressive. You want to be raw. We're taught from a young age, at least in the Americas, in the Western Hemisphere, that it starts early. Be ashamed about this. Be ashamed about that. It doesn't matter what gender you are. Be ashamed about this. And it's just like, I can't. And you can't either. Throw it away. It's like the death card in tarot. Just the removal of excess. Something that does not serve you, throw it away. Bye-bye. Now let's try that again.
This is Our Phoenix, performed by St. Olaf Chapel Choir. The last thing I wanted to talk with you about, because you were talking about trust and love. And there's a quote that I have from you here that I just wanted to read. You can let me know if this still sounds like you as an ever-evolving person, not the side. It's good. It's good. Love is not possible without trust. And what we're trying to accomplish in choir, whether it's with COVID or in isolation or not, it's really important that people feel connected. Unfortunately, there's a lot of trust that's been broken. It requires us to lead difficult conversations. It requires us to be vulnerable. And it requires us to be accountable for what we've done. And it can't just be an apology statement thing. This is something that has to become a regular practice as we learn to be better human beings together. So I agree with the power of choral music and the importance of love. I just don't think love is possible without trust.
1,000%. And I want to add on to that because ACDA asked me to write an article about belonging, which is the whole theme of our convention. Not only is belonging a Maslow's hierarchy of needs need, it's a human need, it's a psychological need. We have to have trust first to feel like we belong. That's the main point. The addendum is when we talk about respect or kindness, I want to do something violent to those words because they are a vacuum. They suck up the conversation and they're like, well, I was just being respectful or I was being very kind. And it just deters the possibility of accountability. And I really don't want people to be respectful or kind. You know, politesse, as I like to say, politesse is for elites. And we need to stop cosplaying as elites so that we can just like actually be present with each other and make good music.
And have honest conversations, like you're saying. Oof. Last little tidbit then. Do you have any example of a time where trust was broken? Maybe it's something that you did where you had to learn to repair trust or vice versa. Because I think a lot of times people hear those things and it sounds beautiful, but they don't know like real stories that they can take from to be like, hey, I'm not saying this is someone above you, but someone that's working through this too.
There's two things, if I may. I want to shout out somebody who inspired me and made me, like, I trusted from day one and who just like took that trust and just like embellished it and in some way is really responsible for a lot of my success and that he showed me to the world. And that's Dr. Anton Armstrong, the conductor of the St. Olaf Choir. I think as a student, I was just kind of a goofball. I would laugh at his jokes louder than anybody else in the room because, I mean, he's a large Black man and he would say funny things. And I'm from Texas and I'm trying to unlearn stream, so I'm just going to laugh really loud at his jokes because they're funny. But I felt like I was being too loud all the time in Minnesota. I felt like I was being too loud. And the point of it is that he's the model for me for what is correct. Earning the ability to be there, but also letting me be in his choir, letting me be myself in his choir. And then after the fact, doing my music literally all over the world. And I'm indebted to him for the success that I've had and the exposure because he was celebrated. And I can say anything and he will back me up. So that's the big thing, is that I've experienced that validation with him time and time and time again as a student and then in my career. And so that's the model for what's right. Now, on the other hand, I literally had somebody ask me to donate a piece of music, as in they didn't want to pay me for a commission. And he suggested that I just marry a rich man. And the tone deafness of that was loud. So when you talk about like models of creating trust versus model of destroying trust, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. In my career, like, look, I can be excellent, but I'm not really an elite. I think sometimes I try to cosplay as that. I think a lot of classical musicians are cosplaying as elites. But, you know, Bach pooped. Mozart pooped. Debussy pooped. It's okay. We just let's just say it out loud and then move on.
Yeah, they're humans, they're people. We all are all worthy of trust, respect, not respect, but respect. But you know what I mean? Not the way, the word that you hated, the vacuum of it.
I hate respect.
But like, we're all just worthy of you just being like, okay, cool. Even if I don't understand, it's you, that's your life, cool.
Respect is like gender. It doesn't really, it means something, but only in the context that it exists. So when you go to a foreign country, respect looks different. And like, you can say that you're principled and you hold that as a value, but it's not helpful. That's the real problem I have with it. I don't mean to be impolite or rude. It's not helpful to connection, human connection.
I get that. It's not specific enough. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for us?
No. I'm tired. I'm just tired.
And you're allowed to be.
Drink lots of water. And when you catch yourself saying the word lazy, even if that's calling yourself lazy, lazy doesn't exist. That's passé. That's white supremacy. We're beyond that. People deserve to rest, be hydrated, and be present when they're asked to show up in public.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this convo. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your words of wisdom. And thank you for just being beautiful. And that's a wrap on this month's Here Together episode from the Philadelphia Orchestra and Kimmel Center, Inc. If you want to keep up with Mari or peruse the detailed credits for all the recordings you heard today, check out the show notes in our description box. And while you're over there, maybe take another moment to subscribe, rate, or leave a comment. I'm not the boss of you. These are just ideas. But you should. Stick around after the musical outro for our in-depth lightning round, where we'll ask a standard set of nosy questions. But first, here's some more of Mari's Our Phoenix. Are you prepared for this lightning round?
I don't think I could possibly be, but let's go.
First question. Who makes you laugh?
People on Drag Race. I watch Drag Race.
Mm-hmm. Oh, me too. We can talk season 15 after if you want.
There's a lot to laugh about.
There's a lot. Okay, which one of the drag queens, if you had to give me a top 3 of drag queens that make you laugh?
Oh, Bob.
Oh, love Bob.
Bob is just the best personality.
Oh, so great.
Who else is funny? Jinx sometimes.
Switching gears completely then, I'm going to ask you a cataclysm sentence. Now, this is if the entire world was to, all the humans on the world were to be completely extinct because of a giant cataclysm, and you had to give advice to the new batch of humans that would maybe inhabit the earth. I know. We went from Who Makes You Laugh to this. Listen, I contain multitudes, and so do we at the Here Together podcast. But what would your cataclysm sentence be?
Well, it wouldn't have anything to do with being nice to each other.
Okay.
I think learning how to live with the earth is like the smartest thing for me to say, which is not something that I know a lot about, but Indigenous people do.
I think that's very honest. Thank you. What is a skill that you wish you had?
A skill that I wish I had.
That you don't currently possess?
I mean, just because it's in front of me, I wish I was a better pianist. Like, if I was actually a pianist to the caliber that people would hire me to play piano, that would be pretty awesome.
Okay.
I'm a vocalist.
But vocalist and composer, you're already, not that there's a hierarchy, but you're already one notch above us regular vocalists who just sing.
I disagree. There's many ways to be excellent.
Thank you. Next question. What is a song that you wish you had written?
Ooh. Again, first thing that comes to my mind, a song called Soir by Gabriel Fauré. It's usually sung by a mezzo. I attempted to sing it in the past, but it is just delicious.
Next thing. Worst advice you've ever gotten?
Worst advice? Oh, I don't know. My first answer that comes in my head is these things that I've told myself that are just not true. Like thinking that I was unworthy. What I composed as a student, not feeling good enough and feeling like nobody wanted to perform my music when those pieces are being kind of discovered now and people are programming them like in the United States and beyond. And it's just weird to me because it's like the whole choral world has caught up to where I have been. And so things that I wrote 10 years ago are like new and exciting. And it's confusing to me, but I think I wish I had not told myself that I was not worthy.
Until next time, I'm Khadija Mbowe, and this has been the Here Together podcast from the Philadelphia Orchestra and Kimmel Center, Inc.